Welcome to Catalyst for Healing. I'm so glad you joined me today. This is my first podcast doing solo called Catalyst for Healing Innovative Breakthroughs in Mental Health. I've been doing this podcast with two ketamine doctors over the last year about the amazing treatment around ketamine assisted psychotherapy, all the questions answered that you might have if you were interested in pursuing that. But as we covered a lot of those topics, I have decided to branch out and cover other innovative treatments for mental health because I have a heart and a passion to help people find a treatment that's going to work for them. A lot of the process of getting better with mental health is trial and error. And the more that we can learn about and the more that we can understand in terms of options for treatment, then hopefully more people will get better. And we're in a mental health crisis right now in our country. There are so many people struggling with anxiety, with depression at levels we've never seen before. So I feel a real urgency to get this information out there to help as many people as possible. So I want to start by sharing my story because my personal story, which I know a lot of therapists don't share their personal story, and I really struggled with whether or not to do this, but I felt in this situation that it was necessary to do because when people hear your stories, they connect and understand why you got to where you got. And so my story is really telling you how I got to where I am in my journey and my healing journey. And it might give you ideas about things that could help you or things you might want to try if you're struggling and have some of the same things that you're dealing with. So I want to start by sharing that I personally have been in my own mental health journey for a very, very long time. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I was licensed 24 years ago. And my first real bout with depression, I got licensed, I was about 26, 27. Started after I had my first son, which was at 30. And I had a very, very difficult pregnancy physically and emotionally. I think it took a toll for those 9 months. I had something called hyperemesis at the time. They didn't have a name for it, but I was throwing up through the majority of the pregnancy. And so postpartum, I had very severe difficulties functioning. I had trouble sleeping. I was crying all the time. And I went to my doctor. And of course, as a therapist, you see these things happening to yourself and you know all the clinical things, but you're also kind of in denial of like, well, maybe I'll get through this. Maybe it's not so bad. But the crying every day was very extreme, and the thoughts of sadness, and it was just very, very difficult. So I went to my doctor at the time, you know, to get support and got the diagnosis of postpartum depression. So he put me on Prozac, which then led to things when I was on Prozac started getting much, much worse. So my mood started cycling. I basically, I had more trouble sleeping. I had severe insomnia. I had anxiety. I was all over the place. And so at that point, I saw a psychiatrist who diagnosed me with bipolar 2 because what they explained to me at the time was I didn't have a manic episode, so I wasn't bipolar 1, but all the other symptoms I was having kind of put me in that category. And I was very, at the time, skeptical about the diagnosis. So I went to 3 different psychiatrists, and they all 3 diagnosed me with the same diagnosis. So at that time, it led to a 2-year process of trial and error with different medications. Because for those of you that have been through this, who might be bipolar 2 or just depression in general, it's it's a trial and error process, but it often can last a long time because you don't see that things are working until about 2 weeks out. And then they transition you into a different medication. And for me, I'm a very sensitive person. And so my system responded really strongly to medications. I had every side effect you could possibly have because what they were putting me on was an antipsychotic. So that's what the class of drugs that they put you on if you're not responding primarily to an antidepressant. So I had tried lithium. I was completely a zombie. I had tried Depakote. My hair was falling out. I had tried a number of different antipsychotics with severe side effects. And finally, the one that worked the best for me was called Seroquel, but it had a lot of side effects. I gained 30 pounds in 1 year. It developed over time, high blood pressure, high blood sugar. Um, there's a lot of serious side effects with that, but it was the one that was tolerable for me and helped me sleep, which at the time, for those of you that have had sleeping issues, you can't function without sleep. And I was so desperate for sleep. So to make a long story short, by the end of that process of going to the psychiatrist, I had come to kind of accept that this was my diagnosis and these were the medications I needed to be on. But I was on 3 different medications at that point. Um, I was on Cymbalta, Lamictal, and Seroquel, and had been on them for over 20 years. So as some of those of you that have been on medications, what happens is you end up needing higher doses over time to get the same effect. So over those 20 years, things would stop working or shifting, and then I would have to raise the dose. So by the end of that, 20-year process, I basically was on the highest doses possible on medication and was still struggling quite a bit. And I had my second big breakdown during COVID. As many of you probably have experienced, that was a very difficult time, just being so isolated and shut down. But for me, I was also going through perimenopause. There was just a lot of different life stressors going on. My kids came home. They were freshmen in high school, freshmen in college. So my one that was away at college came home. And as you know, kids at that age are not thrilled to be at home just with their parents. This is like a time of development to be with your peers. And so it wasn't this like happy, excited time to be together. It was like, wow, you know, and kind of facing that stage of empty nest of realizing, okay, not only are the kids not really thrilled to be home, but I'm also moving into this stage of life where they're not going to be home anymore. And there's a big identity change that goes on for mothers. I mean, motherhood has been my greatest privilege and my greatest passion. And I poured my life into my kids, and I worked, but I always worked part-time because I really had them as my priority. So there was a lot of those feelings coming up as well. So anyway, it was during COVID where the depression just got much, much worse again. And at this point, I was really getting scared because I didn't want to go through trial and error with any more meds. I pretty much tried everything back when I had started on meds. And again, I was on the highest doses of everything. And so I started researching, and I found this test that I really recommend people utilize if they're going to do medication, because it would have been helpful to me back in the day. um, but it basically is a genetic test that shows how your brain responds to different medications. And so I took this test, and the one I took is called Genomind. There's several others out there. They're not covered by insurance yet, but you can ask your psychiatrist to order one for you. Um, and I basically found out from that test that my brain cycles on Prozac. And the minute that I saw that, I knew I wasn't bipolar, because I had remembered that that was the very first medicine I had tried. And so it was actually the Prozac that shifted me into the mood cycling and more severe symptoms, these other things I've been talking about. So there was something in me that just felt so relieved and hopeful because there's so many more treatment options for just depression or just anxiety. But bipolar, when you're in that category, there's a lot of constraints. And so I just remember feeling like, okay, I've got a lot more options to try. And I started researching everything that was out there. And what I had found, this was now 2.5 years ago. Um, so I had found this treatment called ketamine therapy, which has been around for a while, but I hadn't heard about it specifically. And so the more I researched that I did, I found that um, it's 80% effective for depression. And we have nothing like that with regards to medication. I mean, medication's showing about 50% effectiveness, and um, it's something you have to stay on, kind of long term, depending on whether it's situational or not. But a lot of people are on their meds for a long time, whereas ketamine, I had found there's different modalities, ways to do it. But with the IV, where you get the direct 100% bioavailability, it's 6 IVs in 3 weeks, and that's it. So it's not like a pill you're taking every day. I did it through insurance, which insurance covers this treatment in the United States, and it's called Spravato. And so Spravato is 50% bioavailable. So you do have to do a longer treatment session. So I had to do twice a week for a month and then once a week for a month to get the same level of the medicine in my system. And it was through that process of doing the treatment that I realized there were things missing and in the treatment that I really needed. And that's when I started researching kind of better ways to use the medicine and found out how important integration was with the medicine. And that really inspired me to get trained as a ketamine assisted psychotherapist. And so it was through that I started utilizing the power of the medicine in two different ways. It has these amazing brain benefits that you can read about. It increases glutamate, it lowers the default mode network. It has so many ways of activating your nervous system. But then it also allows it, there's a 40-minute dissociative experience, and it allows you to see things in your past. It's like you're watching it from a third party perspective. So you're not engulfed in the emotions around what you're seeing, and you're able to process that trauma and integrate it more quickly than you would with other modalities. So once I really understood that, I got super excited because I I felt like this was nothing like any other treatment I had done. And so for me, it was an incredibly effective treatment. And that's why I got so passionate about doing this podcast, which started a year ago with the clinic doctor, which is kind of a funny story how we got connected because I I do ketamine assisted psychotherapy in my office with the sublingual form, which is like 30% bioavailable. So these are the three different forms: the IV, um, the Spravato, the nose spray, or the sublingual form. But I was finding that for those clients that were more moderate to severe, like when you're getting someone, which I do treat people with severe depression just because I've lived it. By the way, a secret that people don't know is most therapists specialize in what they've gone through because we get so passionate about figuring out how to help ourselves that we become experts. And then that's kind of how we serve our clients best, and we get passionate about it. So basically, I was working with more severe depression, people that were like actively suicidal, and the sublingual just wasn't enough of the medicine to get them out of that space. So I started researching clinics in the area, and that's when I found Dr. Justin Yannick and would send clients to his clinic. He was one of the few clinics that really takes an integrative approach. and encourages therapy. In fact, they require therapy to do with their treatments. And so he and I kind of struck a partnership, and he actually asked me to do the podcast originally, and that's how this all started. But long story short, over the past 2 years, I would say the ketamine sparked this healing at a deep level that I had never really accessed before in therapy. And I have been in therapy since I started as a therapist, because I really believe that I have to, be doing my own work in order to be able to help others. But when I look back, a lot of the therapy modalities at the time, um, you know, way back when, were about helping me manage survival mode. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I was living in a state of fight or flight. These medications were helping me live my life and manage my life, but I wasn't thriving. I was kind of numbed out. I was pretty dissociated, and I would do what I needed to do to get by each day. Um, but with the ketamine and the breakthrough I made with some of that trauma work, which I believe now that we have to do the trauma work, we have to get to the root of it, because that's the only way to really heal our nervous system. So there's so much research out now. And I got trained in neuropsychotherapy because I love research. I love neuroscience. And I want, to kind of look at all the different things that can help with depression, anxiety, which is my other passion in bringing in. I'll bring in different speakers on my podcast that have integrative approaches and kind of out of the box thinking approaches, because there's just so much information out there that's useful. But what I found was, once I was able to heal the roots of the trauma, I had to heal my nervous system. So the somatic practices that I've done have really completely changed the way that I live in my body from more of a calm and grounded state. And I had to do some work with IFS, which is internal family systems, where you look at the different parts of you that are holding you back from being your real authentic self, and you learn to integrate those parts in a new way. Um, Something else that's helped me a lot is EMDR. So doing eye movement, you can do it through tapping as well. And all these modalities are different ways to really target trauma work and resolve it effectively. I'm a big believer in all the psychedelics at this point. I'm going to actually have people coming up to interview that will talk about IFS and somatic practices and EMDR. But also, I have two friends that work with MDMA clinical trials and psilocybin clinical trials, because the research on psychedelics is out and it's incredible what it's showing. And we don't have that legalized yet, but I think it's important to start thinking about. And then all the integrative things that I've learned as, just with my own health and healing. I have my nutritionist and naturopath coming on just next week for an interview to share the top 5 supplements for mental health. And there's just so many things we can do naturally to try to get better and to heal that I think are really important. I mean, basic things that we know and we think about, but I want to help, um, just to let people know. And the best way for me to do that is just sharing my own experience and the people that have helped me. So I'm going to have people that I interview that have been just an incredible part of my healing journey. And I'm just excited. I'm excited to share with you, because honestly, I feel like I've suffered a lot, and a lot of it not has been unnecessary, but I just wish someone was there to say, hey, keep trying new things, because if you're sitting here watching and you've struggled with anxiety and depression, or maybe you know someone that has, you have fought hard. I mean, you're fighting hard every day just to survive. And I want you to put that energy in fighting hard with treatments that can really help. I want there to be a whole new frame around mental health, because one of the things I've learned is that every breakdown that we experience, so when you have depression or anxiety, it's telling you that something is not okay in your life. And every breakdown can either lead you to get further stuck, or it can lead you to a breakthrough and to make a major change in your life that can take you to a whole new level. And that's what I want people to see mental health as. It's like these are opportunities to get connected with ourselves in a whole different way, because I believe we're in a mental health crisis because people are out of alignment with their true selves. I know I was. And when you're not living out of an authentic, true self, you're not going to be happy and fulfilled. There's just, it's just not possible. And you're not going to be making decisions about your life, making sure you're in environments and relationships and careers that are going to help you thrive rather than drain you and keep you stuck. And so sometimes this work will lead you to make big changes in your life. And I know that's scary, but it's scarier to stay stuck. It's much scarier. And so my heart and my hope is that this will be a nourishing place for you to get information and for you to learn and to grow. I created a free interactive guide that I would love for you to sign up. I have an email list. You just sign up with your email, and then I'll also be sending weekly newsletters to update you on anything new coming out in mental health. I'm going to be doing a lot of different innovative um, messaging just to let you know it's current, because there's so much coming out. I mean, on a weekly, monthly basis at this point, that it can be so beneficial. And but in the guide, what I focus on is helping you determine, like, what has led you to this breakdown. Like, if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, there have to be factors that have led you to this point. And I want you to identify what that is. And then I give you kind of a blueprint to get in touch with the real you by asking questions, helping you get more access to your real self. And then I provide steps to take to move you towards a breakthrough. And a lot of that is, I have a whole section on grounding practices, because if we don't have practices that are grounding in our life, then we don't stay connected to our real selves. And then I also include, ways to get in touch, like practically, with your true self. So it's called the True Self Manifesto, but it's called the Blueprint. And so go ahead and again, just give me your email. I'll send that out to you right away. I have some amazing speakers coming up. I'm super excited to share with you a few of them. I have someone coming out to talk about neurofeedback, TMS. I have, again, my naturopath, my nutritionist, these people on psychedelics. So I have a whole list of speakers. I'm going to be doing a combination of doing interviews with people, and then also sometimes just sharing some of the things that have worked for me. So I guess just to wrap up, I want this to be a place where you can learn, because I do think learning is so important in terms of just getting new information is helping us think of new ways to get better. And that's the hardest thing with mental health, is we feel so stuck and so isolated and so alone. And so I'm hoping, even hearing the stories of other people that have gone through their own breakdowns and what helped them break through, can inspire you to try something new. Because if we don't keep trying and, figure out what works for us, because something different might work for every person, then we might stay stuck. And that's, I know I've been stuck for a long time, and I want to help anyone who I can to break out of that. So I hope you'll join me in, I'm going to be releasing this on all the channels every Tuesday morning, and I will be posting some other things on Instagram throughout the week that, I feel like come up for me that are important to share. And I'm just really excited for this new direction. And thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great rest of your day. I'm going to share with you real quick my little pup, Winnie, because she might be joining me too on some of my podcasts. Well, she's kind of a big pup. But anyway, she's my emotional support animal. Just thought I'd share that. Okay, bye.